ready to do life and business on your terms and truly live your big ticket life. You either make excuses or you choose to level up. What amazing guests living the big ticket life. Woo! Woo! Brandon Britton here.
Appreciate you having me here today, man.
It's that kind of discernment, that kind of focus, that kind of forward thinking that's so important if you're going to succeed in business today.
Jeff and I are like friends. We're real friends.
We are And so you unlock fortune and freedom without all the stress that normally comes along with it.
It all comes down to your why. Your business, why are you doing it? How is it going to change the world and what's it going to do for your family?
I want you to celebrate your success.
Talk about the struggle. But I promise you, the story is in your struggle.
They'll never be able to say that about me because people only see me working hard at anything that I'm doing whenever they see me.
Focus on your success and the success of those around you.
But being that constant in your community, good or bad, whether things are great in the community, bad in the community, who's steady?
Unapologetically do business and life on your terms and truly live your big ticket life. What amazing guests living the big ticket life. And we discuss how they do it and the big ticket methods they use. The things that make your life successful so you do life and business on your terms.
In and of itself, the only limitations that we really have on ourselves is the ones that we allow to be put on ourselves. And most people don't look at it in that perspective.
There's nothing wrong with being humble, but there's also nothing wrong with stepping into your superpower and letting people know who you are.
Get ready to do life and business on your terms and truly live your big ticket life. So here is what I'm really coming to love about the medium of podcasting. Amazing guests like Robert White, who I have on the show today. Welcome, Robert. We've already got a fan of yours commenting, which is fantastic. But what I've come to love about this medium is you expand the connections to this world. So in another show that I do for a business that I own, I had a famous Emmy-nominated groundhog on that did a commercial with Bill Murray for the Super Bowl a few years ago. Fantastic episode yesterday. And today, Robert White, who's impacted over 1 million people with his teachings, with his learnings and his experiences, is also connected to the late, great John Denver. So Robert, man, welcome to the show. I'm so happy to have you on today. I love these connections that this medium affords us to make.
It's wonderful to be with you, Jeff. And I noticed you had a prior guest, Tara Watterson, one of my absolute favorite people in the world, and somebody who's really making a difference with educating children. So it'll be interesting to see where this goes.
Yeah, for sure. Well, Tara's actually watching. I haven't had Tara as a guest, but sounds like I should. So she's commenting in. So you'll see that throughout the show because we live stream LinkedIn, YouTube, and Facebook. So it's out on multiple channels simultaneous. So we'll always have people kind of commenting. And my wonderful producer, Chris from Cast Ahead, he'll be flashing that in. If we have questions, we'll try to answer them as close to live as we can. So if you're commenting, we may be midstream, mid-thought. We'll get to you at some point throughout the show. But Robert, so you're a pioneer in the personal transformational growth realm of teaching. Before we jump in and talk about the John Denver connection and, kind of bringing yourself back up from losing it all, let's first set the table with what do we exactly mean by personal transformational growth?
Well, one way to talk about it is, first of all, that I'm not a believer in step-by-step growth. I think our natural born resistance to change stops many of us from the kind of growth we really want to live that big ticket life, or, my expression, living an extraordinary life, which basically I think says the same thing. So what it takes for us to change generally is some kind of a shock. A baby is born. I think anybody that's had a child knows that everything changes in that moment that you're dealing with that newborn baby. A divorce or a death in the family or some shocking thing, a car accident. these are things that shake us up, shake us out of the belief system that we are operating from, and allows us to have a new perspective. So transformation's it's an experience. It's something that changes our perspective of who we are and how we operate in the world. So that's been, first of all, an experience for me in my late 20s that sounds like the all-time cliche, but it changed my life. And then I've had the absolute privilege of exposing other people to those kinds of experiences.
Yeah. I mean, listen, I think I don't think there's anything cliche about creating a family with yourself, with your partner, with your spouse. I think family is the greatest thing we can do as people, in the human experiment, so to say. Because without it, the experiment ends. Right? I mean, we have to grow our family. It's just kind of the way it goes. But so. I love that you touched on that. I think we're going to go right into that. One of the things that your career and the your success has allowed you to do is to adopt two children with special needs. Talk about that. Why you did that?
I think that God or the stars or the moon or whatever greater power was involved, because we thought we were at first just rescuing a little boy who was in trouble and about to go into permanent foster care. And it was like we couldn't do anything else. That doesn't sound very enlightened, but it really felt that way. Like we just couldn't bear the thought of what was ahead of him if we had not acted. And then later, his mother was a multiple drug abusing topless dancer, prostitute, and she got pregnant again 3 years later. So we also adopted our son Levi's sister, birth sister. So that's how, because we knew what was ahead of her if we didn't act once again. Now, since then, we've learned a lot about attachment disorder, about being born addicted to crack, a bunch of things that in my lifetime I thought I'd never be exposed to. It never occurred to me that people would do that to a child, but some people are caught up in drugs or mental illness or whatever, and the number of those kids out there in the world is unfortunately very large. So we came to the rescue. I think it was significant that my former wife and I both left home at 14 because of abuse. And so when we came together, we had some shared history. And I think that those children helped us heal. So there's a selfish aspect to the adoption in that we learned so much from the process of parenting Levi and Emily.
Yeah, well, you're the second guest, and I mean, I'm 44 episodes in to the Big Ticket Life Show here. You're my second guest and there might have been others that just didn't come up in conversation, who has chosen to either foster and or adopt and kind of stood in that gap and stepped in to help where you see an immense need. And I think as leaders, as business owners, as successful individuals, I think that should be one of those byproducts you look to do. Now, maybe for you, it's not adoption. Maybe it's not something, because that's a major commitment. It's a major extension of whatever plan you may have for your family or for your life. But there's all kinds of other opportunities in this world. So I'd be remiss to not touch on that, because I think there's, I have a saying, the idea is to shift from success to significance in life. And you made that significant moment for Levi and his sister. That was a significant moment for them. And we need, as leaders, if you're going to be extraordinary, right, live an extraordinary life, as you like to say, I think we got to look for those moments of significance for sure. So kudos to you for standing in that gap.
Just being a bit awake, perhaps. I think most people care and want a better world, and that has to start where you live, not in some high-minded statement of your noble truth, but rather in your action, in the decisions that you make. And so, I mean, it is not something to be taken lightly. We could spend this entire show easily talking about what we learned personally and the value to us personally and to our family. And it was tough. You know, we had a lot of really rough periods, and some of that, frankly, still continues today. So it's not a decision to be taken lightly. However, there's a huge need, and you know, these are the people that are going to create our future, these children. So
Yeah.
if you do nothing more than look for a teenage foster child that needs to have an outing once in a while, that needs to go to the zoo, that needs to go on a little trip with you. A good friend of mine, Susan Hart's been doing that with a young woman for many years. Susan did not have children, so it's kind of an adoption in a way.
Right.
She includes this young woman in her life, and they've become obviously extremely close friends also. But there are many, many ways to contribute.
Yeah. Yeah. But and you're 100% right. I mean, to sit back and not actively think about how you can impact your local community, and especially if that community is part and parcel of your success, your business success, are your customers, are your patients, are your clients. Like if you're not thinking that way, that's a moment of leadership where you can learn and improve, right? I think that's
Well, and it
very
also,
important.
in addition to personal growth, you know, I in the pre-show we talked a bit about with my company. I had 70 full-time experiential trainers and another 50 on contract. And some people say that working with trainers is like herding cats. You know, they have big personalities. And a few of them are borderline or full-on narcissistic personality disorder. Well, the biggest lesson I've learned about working with those people, I learned from working with Levi, who had stage 4 attachment disorder and was pretty dysfunctional at that time. By the way, Levi's turned out really great. He's married. He's a college grad. He's a wildland firefighter supervider. He's out there doing that really dangerous work that makes me nervous. And married with 2 wonderful children. I mean, his life turned out incredibly, but it was a rough journey along the way to that. And I learned so much about managing trainers by learning to be a different kind of parent to Levi.
Yeah, I mean that's just such a fantastic story right there to impact Levi's life, and really you've impacted 3 other lives, and then the lives that his wife and himself and the children are going to talk. I mean, just that's the point. Like for me, that's a big ticket life. Like that's that shift from success to significance. That had that not happened, at least 3 other people would not be impacted in the way that they are today. Plus, through the lens of Levi, you're able to lead your training team differently in an improved and likely better way. So talk about, I mean, 70 trainers on staff and 50 others. So a team of 120, that's a big team. And I often talk about the folks that I work with, like we need to approach our process objectively. The like waking up, like, especially in a sales environment, right? Like, so treating your prospect subject to how you're feeling that morning, how your morning went at home, the car ride in, how the first phone call went to the next phone call, or the first up to the second up. A lot of subjectivity comes into the sales process, the presentation process, the opportunity to impact. How did you manage? Like, let's start digging into managing a team that big. And I'm guessing it was not just a big team, but it was international, right? Because you did business in Hong Kong, all over the world. Let's dig into that a little bit.
Well, I'm an opportunist, I think, more than anything, and an entrepreneur. So I was just looking for the next space that the opportunity that appeared before me and to jump into it. I have many faults. I'm a long way from the perfect person, but I think a strength that I have is I do sort for opportunity. I sort for what's possible and for what's next for me and where I can contribute. So, you know, in my late 20s, I went through one of these early human potential movement trainings. It did, in fact, change my life for the better. And life just got better for me. And I started enrolling other people. Oh, I didn't know you had this picture. That's that's from my video. Okay. I had these incredible experiences after that training, and that led to serving for 4 years as president of one of the pioneers in the personal development training industry, Mind Dynamics. And when the ownership changed there and it was no longer a good place for me to be, I founded a company called LifeSpring in the U.S. That experience didn't last very long. LifeSpring went on to graduate 500,000 people and be in 17 cities in the United States, did some great work. And I took an opportunity to go to Asia. So we became the largest training company in Asia, the second largest in the world, 240 full-time staff in 5 countries, and a real blessing in my life. I mean, lots of hard work, lots of missteps and failures and learning and wonderful people, incredible people that were attracted to our work and especially that joined my staff.
Yeah. That's it's quite the start into that niche, into that realm of personal development and transformational growth. So we brought up a minute ago about the aspect of childhood abuse and poverty and trauma and things like that. You have that similar start, and I think for people to understand, you don't always need those things to be part of a success recipe to be wildly successful, but it is a commonality amongst a lot of successful people. So why do you think that is? What is it about that rough start from your perspective that you've seen that allows people to succeed in life?
You know, you mentioned John Denver earlier, and if you take a look at, John wrote 200 songs, he recorded over 300, and he had 3 themes. If you take a look at his musical output, one was certainly about nature, the wind, the water, the trees entered so many of his songs. And 1/3 was about love, about falling into love and falling out of love, his personal adventures reflected in his songs. And but the third area was our area. It was about the human spirit. And I think within all of us, there is that longing to matter in the world, to make a difference, to contribute. In some cases, it just shows up as survival. And certainly food, clothing, and shelter is pretty much the basic foundation of everything. But then it might move on from survival to maintenance, to getting that handled, to getting some certainty about that food, clothing, and shelter, about your life, a routine, a job. In some people, it's a job or a successful business. But once that's handled, I think there's a natural human longing to matter, to be recognized, to be a celebration of your uniqueness. One of my friends, Arjun Sen, is a really brilliant guy, and he talks about how with 7 billion people on the planet, we are each one of one. We are unique. And I think there's just a natural flow toward expressing that uniqueness in the world. And it might be being a really great mom. It might be in some craft. It might be in art. It might be in music. It might be in business success. That whatever it is that we were born to live into the world, that we fully express that. I think it's just natural. And yes, I had a rough beginning. But if I look back, my mother was an angry, violent woman who had a lot of children and really didn't like children. I never quite understood that one. But she was also a model of hard work. She was widowed 3 times. She survived.
Wow.
She made sure there was clothing on our back, even if it was made from feed sacks. And I did go to school my first 2 years wearing feed sack clothing. That's something that I think a lot of younger people don't even know about. But
yeah, wow. That's, I remember just a quick little addition to that. I remember going to school, having gotten clothes from Goodwill and made fun of because the popular kid in school recognized it as his that were donated from a year or two prior. But yeah, the feed sack thing, that's,
and
that's
out of all of
powerful.
that, she was an example of hard work and of personal responsibility, and of I will not be knocked down. No matter what happens, I will survive. And I didn't realize I was learning that, but that was the example that I saw, along with the abuse and criticism and all of that. But I think people make a choice, and I'm being an extremely simplified version of life here, is that some people exposed to that retreat or drift into alcohol or drugs, or become that hidden person. Other people fight against it, and I'm that person. I made a decision that informed my life for a long time, and that simple decision was, I will never be poor again. And I actually, Jeff, I took that all the way to a 14,500 square foot home on 76 acres in Aspen, my own jet, and a life that everybody dreams of. Now, so that's the good news. It led to huge success, because the way I translated "I'll never be poor again" was, I'll show you that,
Right.
I'm gonna show you that I'm not that poor kid that everybody teased, and so that the downside of that, by the way, is I started waking up in that beautiful home and skiing 80 days a year and just fully enjoying my life. I started waking up mornings thinking, God put me here for some reason that I haven't yet fulfilled. Something's still missing. And and that's the subtitle of my book. It's about success, yes, but it's also about joy and fulfillment. That's what was missing in my life when I was wealthier than I ever imagined I could be, was the joy and fulfillment. I wasn't smiling enough. I wasn't enjoying all of that fully. So that's been my last 10 years. I've been working on joy.
Yeah, good for you. I mean, it's a common thread out there. People reach what they feel is their pinnacle, and then they get up there and it's pretty lonely. It's unhappy. It's not fulfilling. And then they march back down to go find it. It's a pretty common thread. I think, one thing that I often talk about, and I try to remind people of, and I remind myself of it, because I've got, my childhood, my family upbringing through early teenage years, man, it could be a 6-part lifetime miniseries. But I've come as of late to think of these things don't happen to us, they happen for us, right? These experiences create, I have this concept that I speak to, of this shield, right? And we can carry that shield, we can bring it around to create that space and bring others in that have had these similar struggles and say, you know what? We can talk about this stuff. We can grow from this stuff. We can decide we're never going to be poor. And I think in that, it really becomes a really cool place to have others kind of rally around you, because so many leaders, I think, feel lonely. Is that something you've come across, where they just feel this loneliness of, no one understands me? Maybe they're on the verge of falling back to an addiction, the verge of a failing marriage, the verge of a bankruptcy. And I think you've experienced most, if not all of those. So let's dig into that, about you're not out there all alone.
I mentioned earlier with you in our personal conversation that I just returned from a week in Aspen, Colorado, celebrating the 25th anniversary of my friend John Denver's death, and I wrote I have this little thing I do weekly called An Extraordinary Minute, and I wrote about that and what it triggered for me. And one of the things it triggered was from a John Denver song, and I can quote from the song. It's called Sweet Surrender, and it starts by saying, "Lost and alone on a forgotten highway, traveled by many, remembered by few." And, I work with senior executives, people that are hugely successful. They work hard. They've got a vision. They are indomitable. You can count on them. They're going to go for it. They've succeeded often beyond their fondest dreams. And yet they often feel lost and alone on that forgotten highway, that there's something missing in their life, that they've sacrificed a lot to get to that level, to that position in life. So one of the methodology that I've learned and that we've worked with over 1 million people involves dealing with the whole person, with everyone. And there are 3 aspects to it in our work, and this is kind of the simplified version. But that what we all need to do is, first of all, to complete our past. You can't change it. There's nothing you can do to change your past. It's behind you. But if you've got energy on it, blame, shame, regret, guilt, or even past success, that until you let go of it, you can't go forward. And really, people that are already quite successful have that same issue, by the way, but they're just very good at compartmentalizing it, at stuffing it, at getting it out of the way. And in a way, you can admire that and the fierceness that's behind that with many people. But it's still there. It affects hiring and firing and managing and loving and taking care of your family. It affects everything, all of that stuff from your past. The second piece is to learn to better tell the truth about your current reality. We all live in a story. We have a story about ourselves, about our strengths, our weaknesses, and who we are. Quite often that story has little or no connection to reality. The Buddhists have a little different expression, but I like it. It's to develop a selfless regard for reality. In other words, to get the ego out of the way and see what's really true about us, about the people in our lives, about the circumstances, about our environment, about what we've created. And then if you've done those 2 things, if you've done some work on completing your past and shifting the energy on it to a neutral or even a positive energy, if you have become better at telling the truth about your reality, about the people around you, about yourself, about your environment, you've created a space to choose your future. That your future is not bound up in your educational level. It's not bound up in how you grew up. It's not bound up in your strengths or your perceived weaknesses. That you're just free to choose how you want to create the future. So those are easy words. The experience of it is not so easy. The most commented on line from my book is, "Life is simple. It's not easy." And Jordan Peterson says it's tragic. The Buddhists are kind of agree with that, that all life is suffering. Well, that's our lives. So what are we going to do with that? That's the question. Right. And there, for thousands of years, great teachers have taught that the answers. Life is actually pretty simple. It's just not easy. It's the existentialists say life is hard and then you die. Kind of a severe way of looking at that. But it's a choice. Right. Everything's a choice for us, Jeff.
Yeah. I mean, you touched on a couple things there that really I wrote down. And for anybody watching, and by the way, if you're picking this up on audio, and about 10 minutes ago, Robert said, "Oh, you have that video, you have that picture." So we do stream this show, so you can always come back search in any kind of player where videos shown the big ticket life, and you'll find the episode, or you can just search the episode name and you'll get the video to get a different experience with this show. But so to go back to what you just wrapped up on, I love how you said complete your past. Like your past is your past. You can't change that. But I think so many people, they continue that own story in their mind about this thing in the past manifests to this thing in the future. And that thing in the future is only real in your own mind. Right? It's that story. You're the only one telling yourself that story. No one else is. So I really love that about completing your past. And then I think I talk about this about my frame of reference is new cuts don't equal old scars, right? This is that packing away of the stuff. And you said it affects hiring, it affects leadership, it affects your mood, it affects how you approach your day, how you approach an opportunity. Because that story we start to tell ourselves becomes this whole thing. And then we begin to go back in our minds, I think, about, well, it's just like that in the past. It's just like this time I was told I wasn't good enough. I was told I was going to fail. I was harmed, whatever that might be. And that old scar isn't a new wound. It's not being given by that employee. It's not being given by that prospect saying no. It's just what it is. So that fierceness of packing it away and going forward, like you said, is good. But I think it can also be, I'd ask you, do you think it can also be if we don't learn how to complete your past? Again, I love that statement a lot. I think packing it away almost can be troublesome because it does come back up. It does manifest. Can you add to that, expand on that at all?
Well, it's a bit like having a backpack with 50 kilograms of lead in the backpack.
Mm-hmm.
It's there, but it's behind you, but you're carrying it. And so
love that.
And most of us, we're not talking about people that need deep psychological work and therapy. We're talking about I love this expression. I stole it from someone else. That's the normally neurotic. That the normally neurotic seems to define a lot of Western culture, quite frankly.
Yep.
And for the normally neurotic, which includes me, until we let go of all of that, I don't think we can celebrate and use this unique one of one that we are, the life we were born to live, and which I define as an extraordinary life and you define as a big ticket life. It's possible for all of us. Some of us have more barriers in the way, some have less, but we need to handle those and then claim that life that we were born to live. One of my big growth experiences, an experience that changed my life, was divorce. And one of my friends described it as the divorce from hell. And by the way, that's one of the things that brought John Denver and I so close together, as we went through that together. Our wives were our best friends, and they left us in the same time period, and all of that was done kind of together. And it was really a horrible experience for me. But what it meant was there's a psychological thing called transference. So while I'm going through this now, my former wife's 4 feet 11 inches tall, dark hair, very pretty, very alive, very expressive, a great outgoing personality. So I go off to Hong Kong, and we had a contract worker, a woman from the U.S. who was coming to Asia and helping us retool some of our systems. And she had done a fantastic job. I had never met her. I knew about her. She's kind of famous in our industry. And I wanted to say thank you. So when I went to Hong Kong on a visit, this is while I had moved back to Aspen, or moved to Aspen, and I arranged for my last day in Hong Kong was her first day on one of her visits. So I arranged to have breakfast with her. And I'm in the car after the breakfast. I'm in the car going to the airport, and the phone rings, and it's my managing director for Hong Kong, and he's yelling at me. about how badly I treated this woman that we are so grateful to. You could not have paid her enough money to do the amazing work she was doing for us. I had the breakfast to say thank you, and he's yelling at me because I was just being a jerk with her. She was 4'11", dark hair, big
Oh.
personality. And I was totally unconscious that I was not seeing her. I was not with her. I was with the pain that I was going through with my family and the, losing the woman that I loved. And so that happens, and it usually happens unconsciously. And quite often we don't get busted like my managing director did.
Yeah.
Don't get confronted from it. Therefore, you don't learn anything. But I learned that I have to be more aware of the pain that I'm storing, that's inside me subconsciously, and that leaks out into my life and how I handle the people around me, how I behave, how I see myself, about all of those things. So when we talk about completing the past, it's another one of those simple and not easy things, because we have to face up to our own personal responsibility that it's a new day, it's a new choice. It's in the next moment, it's a new day, it's a new choice. And that our lives depend not on what happened in our past, but rather the choices that we're making today. Our choices about how we use our time, about how we treat the people around us, about how we handle the objections that come up from the world, all of those things. That's a fresh moment to choose. The challenge, of course, is to let go of your past and be present to that choice, and also to see that choice in the context and the filters of your vision of what you want to create with this life that we're gifted with.
Yeah. You're actually I'm just letting you go because I'm taking it all in, because I've been reading and studying, the concept of being a stoicism, I guess would be the more appropriate term. And, really, really judging ourselves and how we react, not to the moment, but to the outcome. Right.
Yes.
I think a real applicable way to think about this for anybody watching, anybody listening, and you've got some great friends tuning in. Tara's been with us for most of the show. She might have had to run, but Bryce McKinley, I think, is a friend of yours. He's tuning in. He says, "Love you, sir," and he's going to be reaching out to you later. So there you go. But I think a way to kind of put a nice little bow on what you just expanded on about how we react in a moment, and is this something that's legitimate, or is it a manifestation, a transference of another problem? Is apply it to when you're driving down the road. If that person in front of you is going slow and you just want them to move over, how do you respond to that? Can you have forgiveness that maybe that person, and I'm one, I need to check myself at times. Maybe that person just got fired. Maybe their kid's in trouble at school. Maybe they're making a life-changing decision to bring a child into their home, and they're just wrapped up in their mind. Like that little moment, which anybody listening and watching has experienced, other drivers on the road being in their way, right? We can kind of look at how we judge ourselves and our response to that moment, and not so much judgment of the other person. I think that's a way to put a little bow on that, and think about it. Think about what Robert just shared. But man, that last 5 minutes, so about 33 minutes in or so, hit rewind on that and listen to what Robert just shared. Fantastic. Just fantastic perspective on that topic of transference. Loved it. So you often, throughout your writings and teachings, you talk about interruptions. Let's talk about that. Where'd you get that theme from, and expand on it?
A lot of our work over the years has been grounded in a reality, which is that we are driven. We make a lot of our choices unconsciously based upon our belief system. We have a belief about ourselves. We have a belief about other people. We have a belief about success, about money, about our role in the world. We have beliefs about a lot of things, and we don't have to stop and think about everything. The simple example is that a couple of months ago, I was in a supermarket. I turned into an aisle. There was a woman with 3 small children, and she is in breakdown. They're all, I would say, under 7 years old. But the 3, I would guess, 3-year-old was just raging. He didn't want to be there. He was not happy. He's knocking things off the shelf. She's yelling at him. It's the kind of thing you see. The question, of course, is how do you respond to that? And that happens, that response happens in no time, with no thought. And it comes from your belief system. Because what she did in that moment, just as I turned that corner, was she reached down, she grabbed him by, he was on the floor, on the tile, and she reached down, grabbed him arm, half picked him up and swatted him on the butt. So how do you react? If you have a belief that children should never be hit, that's one reaction you have, right? If you have a belief, I'm not going to get involved, that's her life, you walk away, that comes from a belief, but it all happens again in no time. If you have a belief that I need to help, and by the way, I've had a lot of training in dealing with that kind of stuff because of Levi and Emily and all I learned through that. But in most cases, fixing her ain't it. That just leads to problems, more problems. So there's all kinds of things, the ways that you could react. It's all belief system based. And so we make a lot of our decisions out of an unconscious state. So what we've taught for years is become more aware of your belief systems, of what you learned. And most of that's learned before you're 8 years old. There's a lot of research done on that, about who you are and how you show up in the world. When I look at what's my contribution at this point in my life, is that my contribution is to be a mirror, to be an interruption, so that, that executive that says, well, things are pretty good around here, but poor me, my key people are leaving. I don't have anything to do with it. It's just that that's the environment and they're getting paid more somewhere else. And they've got a story about it. My job is to say, well, what's your role in it? To be that mirror, to be an interruption to the patterns that they've developed over time. And most of the time, those patterns brought good results at one point. And then they learn the wrong thing from it and repeat that pattern again, again, and again. So if I'm going to be valuable to my clients, my executive clients, it's to be that mirror, to be that interruption. Bryce just made a nice compliment, a nice comment. And, he's just a brilliant guy. But I think Bryce would agree that our relationship is based on me being an interruption to him in a training that I did with some other executives. So that's my role in life. I believe that's one of the gifts that God gave me. And yes, I've done some work to develop that gift, to deliver those messages in a way that has some kindness and compassion, some skill to it. But that the main thing is to have the courage to take the risk of interrupting somebody that's already successful. Bryce being a real example of, already super successful guy. But
just out of curiosity, what industry, what niche is Bryce in? What's Bryce do?
I'm sorry, what?
What industry is Bryce in? What does Bryce do?
Oh, Bryce educates people about investing in real estate.
Okay.
He was one of the most successful educators in the automotive sales business forever, and then personally got involved in investing in real estate, learned a whole lot about it. He's one of those quick studies. And today he runs programs for other people to show them how to be successful with their investments. And he's just brilliant.
Fantastic. Yeah, fantastic. Yeah, I mean, I think the answer is when leadership's in question of the result, look in that mirror, find that interruption, and really, the end result is it's time to lead differently, lead harder. It's not the people around you failing, it's you failing them. Right?
Just when people ask me for a 5-minute answer that, I could easily turn into a 3-day seminar.
Right.
My first answer always is wake up. Just start noticing. Develop a higher level of awareness of noticing, because you are your own best trainer if you can get to your own truth. People that do work like me, we just help you get to your truth. It's not our truth. That's not useful. It's your life, your unique self that you've developed. But it's those patterns. If you catch yourself saying, gee, I don't know why I did that again. Well, there's been a lot of work done on why you did that again. So take advantage of that work. Take advantage of that knowledge, and find out what that pattern is, where it came from, and then you can make a choice. Do I want to continue that? Do I want to drop it? But for most people, they're unaware of the underlying belief system that drove the behavior. Until you're aware of it, you can't do anything about it. Of course, you have to take the next step, which is to take responsibility for it. And, responsibility. Break it down into 2 words and it becomes even more clear. Are you just in reaction to something that might have happened long ago, or to the kind of person you're not comfortable being around, whatever? Or are you responding appropriately and responding through the filter called, what is the vision I want to create? What is the future that I want with this person, with this environment, with this company? And to be acting from that, not acting from an old pattern, an old behavior.
Yeah, I think our conversation is extremely timely, especially on this point of reacting, because if you look at so much of the inputs in a person and a leader's day, from society, from social media, from media in general, from maybe their employees, family members, it just seems like the whole algorithm of life today is to get you to react to something. In 3 seconds, here's a statement, you react and make a decision. Join a camp, put a uniform on, red, blue, whatever. But it's all about what's your response, or really what's your reaction, when really it should be understanding of what's my first response to this, why, and then is that the best response for the situation? And then, do I even need to respond? Does it even matter? Do I need to form an opinion on this? Probably not in a lot of cases, but I think, stepping out of that reactionary role, because the more you just are triggered like that response, react. I think almost the more like lizard brain animal like people can become. Is that a fair statement?
It's really fair. And the answer, of course, is a simple one and a really difficult one. Take a deep breath. This magic ability that we have, that the animal kingdom does not have, the amphibians don't have it, the plants don't have it. It's the ability to choose, but you can only choose if you're present. And the way to get present, it's been taught for thousands of years, particularly in the East, particularly in the meditative community, and that is take a deep breath. Maybe take 2 or 3.
Hey, and if you're hearing what Robert's saying right now about take a deep breath, the skeptic would say we're humans, breathing is essential, it's innate, it's instinctual. Well, there's an entire industry of breathing, like the breath industry, breathing coaches, books, products, apps, doodads to attach to your ear and align your, like, we are so broken as a human species, even though we have the ability to take that deep breath and step back. We're so utterly broken that a whole industry, you talk about sorting opportunity, a whole industry has come in to say, I've got the breathing fix for you. And it's like biologically programmed right here in our lungs to work, but that's how far away we are. Kind of funny. kind of funny. So as we approach the top of our time together, I want to hear how you connected. Like, so what was the first meeting, the first connection with John Denver? You guys obviously had a lot of connection together. Your families came together. Unfortunately, your families went separate together, but you had a close relationship, and you also are a big fan of a charity that he started called planet2020.org. So let's kind of wrap up on the Rocky Mountain High, so to say. Sorry, that was a terrible pun. Sorry, but let's kind of wrap up our time talking about that relationship.
Look, it started with I was a resident in Japan. We're building our business. We're having these big seminars, thousands of people, and we start using John Denver's music. We used a lot of music because a lot of our training, the entry into the self, is through the emotional body, and music is a great tool for entering people's emotions. So he had a song called "I Want to Live," and the hope of every newborn baby and the hope of every adult, right? So at key points in the seminar, we'd use this music illegally. Admittedly, I admit it. Arrest me,
Right.
So admire it. And then we still weren't making any money. We were so broke all the time, investing every bit of revenue back into the program. And John Denver came to Japan in the late 70s, and he sold out the Budokan, 17,000 seats, for 6 shows in 5 days. And in one of those shows, Robert was up in the rafters in the cheapest possible ticket, admiring how this guy came out. No lasers, no pretty girls, no flashing lights. He came out with his guitar and his band and entertained for 2.5 hours straight. And Japanese that don't speak English are singing along to his songs in English. And it was really impressive. But, I saw I was a fan. I became a fan. And later, I published a book called One World, One People, a photo essay. And I wrote the verbal essays. Nobody reads them. The pictures are stunning. One of my visions, my dreams, is to get that book back in print because it's sold out. But I sent a copy to John Denver. I didn't know him. I networked around, found an address, sent it off to him. And I didn't hear from him, but I didn't expect to. It's a gift. You just give the gift. And then I end up back in the U.S., and I'm living in Denver, Colorado, and I'm building a corporate culture change company there. And one of our trainers came to me and said, I'm involved in this nonprofit called WinStar Foundation. John Denver's effort to create a sustainable future includes this foundation. And the foundation's a mess. Will you help? So I said, yeah, if I can, I will. And that led to me attending a board meeting. So the board meeting went on for about 3 hours. And then John turned to me. That was the first time I physically met him. Turned to me and he said, well, Robert, you're supposed to know something about organizations. And what's your opinion about what we're doing here? And it was one of those moments, Jeff, where, your life passes before your eyes, where I go, I know how to duck that question. I know how to be a nice guy and get out of here. Or do I tell the truth? And what I would later identify as, am I the interruption that's needed here? So I took a deep breath and I said, you just spent 3 hours debating whether or not to have chickens on the WinStar property in Aspen. That's not the role of a board of directors. And it was dead silent in the room. And I'm thinking, well, that's the end of that relationship. And also, I saw something that I've seen working with other organizations. Every eye in the room turned to John. That's a really bad sign. When you have to wait to see how the leader reacts to being confronted. I'm not confronting him, I'm confronting the whole room. And I thought, well, okay, the dysfunction here is obvious, but my life is about to end in terms of WinStar and John Denver. And he burst into laughter, just uproariously. And it was real, And then you find the people in the room go, you know, that kind of fake
Right.
laugh.
Yeah. That uncomfortable laughter. Like, is he on board or against? Am I about to be fired or what?
It was great. And then after the meeting, John invited me to his home, and in his home he had like a mezzanine over the living room where it was his library and where they had a grand piano there, and all the books are on the shelves, of course, right? Only one book was out, and it was on the piano, and it was One World, One People, my book. And he hadn't connected the two.
Oh, wow.
I mean, nobody
Okay.
cares. Nobody cares who published and wrote the essays for a photo essay, because 99% of the attention's on the pictures, right? So I pointed out that that's my book, and that's the beginning of our relationship. He recruited me onto the board of WinStar. He persuaded me to move to Aspen. We were actually going to move to Vail, Aspen's competitive ski resort.
Right.
And so that's how, and then, we started doing things together. We vacationed together. We celebrated Christmas in the barn next to my house, and all of those kinds of things. And then and then we experienced divorce together. So we had a lot of shared experiences. And I love him. I miss him. He made a huge contribution to my life, and I like to think I made a little bit of a contribution to his.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Well, I mean, listen.
The handwritten thing you see right there came from the training that we did for the WinStar board and staff, where John was a participant, and we asked people to make a statement of their purpose in life, and that's what he wrote. That's also on his memorial stone, which I've always been very proud of. I am a song. I live to be sung. I sing with all my heart. Pretty much captures John's life.
Yeah, I think so. What a powerful story. Great connection. Glad you could have that friendship. It's just, and it goes to show that, the people that we tell ourselves are way, way up here. They do need a friend. They do need somebody to talk to. They need somebody to rely on. They need somebody to show them, hey, maybe you are in need of an interruption. You need to look in the mirror there a little bit. I've loved our time together here. So if anybody else inspired, we had a handful of people commenting throughout. Dennis said a good choice of time to learn and listen. Thank you. I'm honored by that comment. I'm honored to have spent time with you to bring that impact out in somebody. So if they want to connect more with you, where do they go? Obviously, it's in the show notes, but maybe you're driving, listening to this as a show. Robert, why don't you tell them how they can connect with you?
My website's the best way, therobertwhite.com. And there's some resources there that are free, including registration for my weekly email, An Extraordinary Minute. I've been doing it for over 10 years, and thousands of people read it every week. So it's a way to stay connected. You hit reply at any time, and you reach me, and I respond. So that's the best way. My daughter Megan teases me that at this advancing age, I've become a book salesman, but it's true. So buy my book, Living an Extraordinary Life. It's available on Amazon and Kindle and all that, or a signed copy you can get a signed copy by buying it on my website. Get in touch. Let's find out if we're supposed to do something together or just be friends.
Yep. Love it. Love it. So therobertwhite.com, free resources there. You can carry on John's mission for the environment and the earth with planet2020.org. In the pre-show, Robert said, if you give us $1, we'll plant a tree. So that's what they do over there. And if you want an autographed copy of Robert's book, buy it through his site. All right. Amazon's easy, but you can connect with Robert through a tactile, personal way, buying his book autographed for you right from his site. So, Robert, this has been really great. I always enjoy these interviews, and had a lot of fun talking with you today, for sure. Thank you,
Jeff. I'm delighted. I'm glad if it was some contribution to your life and the life of your listeners and viewers. And obviously, you're doing this as a labor of love. I can feel that, and I appreciate that. I appreciate you.
Yeah, thank you. Well, feeling is mutual. I'm on that podcast high right now, so we're going to wrap up, and man, we'll see everybody next week on The Big Ticket Life. Take care. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to this episode of The Big Ticket Life. You've heard from another amazing guest living their own big ticket life, and now it's time to live yours. First, I'd love for you to take me up on my free gift to you. Claim your gift at gift.thebigticketlife.live. That's gift.thebigticketlife.live. See, all your life you've been told what is and what isn't possible by the loudest voices from the cheapest seats. It's time to finally do life and business on your terms. Sure, you've heard similar things, but without clarity on what can be done, it's easy to have your customers, employees, maybe even partners, and your spouse keep you from truly living a big ticket life. My big ticket methods shift you into that investor seat in your business, away from commodity and away from competition, into a market of one, so you can finally live your own big ticket life. So my gift to you is for you to book your discovery call today, where we'll uncover first the Chivo behaviors, those chief everything officer behaviors that hold you back, and why moving into the investor seat in your own business is critical. 2, we'll uncover the premium position that's up for grabs right now in your market that you're missing out on. And 3, which big ticket methodologies are just waiting to be dropped into your business to explode your sales and profits. So again, thanks for listening to this episode. I'd love for you to take action right now. Accept this gift, book your call, go to gift.thebigticketlife.live. Again, that's gift.thebigticketlife.live.